Did you know that in 1971, non-Catholic celebrities teamed up with a group of well-known Catholics in an attempt to preserve the Latin Mass in England? A petition was sent to Pope Paul VI, signed by no less than 57 cultural luminaries of the time. This motley group transcended nationalities, political opinions, religious sects, etc. But it was the signatory Agatha Christie that brought instant name recognition to His Holiness. "Ah, Agatha Christie," Pope Paul is supposed to have exclaimed upon scanning the list of names attached to the appeal. And this is not surprising considering that Christie's books have been outsold only by Shakespeare and the Bible. A prolific mystery writer who created not one but two famous detectives in the characters of Hercule Poirot and Miss Marple, Christie's books had been translated into more than 100 languages, and her celebrity was known on a global scale. We'll never know if it was Agatha Christie's name that actually tipped the balance in favor of the petition signatories, but that was the myth that was perpetuated, and the special permission granted to England and Wales to say the Latin Mass became known as the Agatha Christie Indult. Let's take a look at the brief text of the petition, which is as follows. Quote, "If some senseless decree were to order the total or partial destruction of basilicas or cathedrals, then obviously it would be the educated, whatever their personal beliefs, who would rise up in horror to oppose such a possibility. Now the fact is that basilicas and cathedrals were built so as to celebrate a rite which, until a few months ago, constituted a living tradition. We are referring to the Roman Catholic Mass. Yet according to the latest information available in Rome, there is a plan to obliterate that Mass by the end of the current year. We are not at the moment considering the religious or spiritual experience of millions of individuals. The rite in question, in its magnificent Latin text, has also inspired a host of priceless achievements in the arts. Not only mystical works, but works by poets, philosophers, musicians, architects, painters, and sculptors in all countries and epochs. Thus, it belongs to universal culture as well as to churchmen and formal Christians. In the materialistic and technocratic civilization that is increasingly threatening the life of mind and spirit in its original creative expression, the Word, it seems particularly inhuman to deprive man of word forms in one of their most grandiose manifestations. The signatories of this appeal, which is entirely ecumenical and non-political, have been drawn from every branch of modern culture in Europe and elsewhere. They wish to call to the attention of the Holy See the appalling responsibility it would incur in the history of the human spirit were it to refuse to allow the traditional Mass to survive, even though this survival took place side by side with other liturgical forms." Unquote. At the time of the liturgical changes in question, the Vatican II reformers claimed that they wanted to open up the Church and the Mass so as to make it more appealing to the world. But here are the luminaries of the secular world protesting such a move. This plea to Rome is entirely unprecedented in the history of Catholicism. We have what can be termed the world begging the Catholic hierarchy not to sacrifice on the altar of ecumenism and worldly appeal one of its greatest treasures. In a strange twist, these representatives of the world seem to be like the angel in the Old Testament, attempting to hold back the hand of Abraham from sacrificing the thing that was of most value to him. As the text of the petition notes, this experimentation with the liturgy would eventually be judged. After roughly 5 decades of the new Mass, it is time to assess the state of the Church in light of this experiment. The fact is, vocations have nearly hit rock bottom. Here in the U.S., in some of the largest dioceses like Detroit and New York, 0 priests were ordained this year. Baptisms are way down. 70% of Catholics no longer believe in Christ's presence in the Eucharist. But wait, you might say, correlation does not necessarily equal causation. It might help to get a clearer picture if we take a look at the beliefs and behaviors of Latin Mass-going Catholics versus those of Norva Soto-going Catholics. Polls conducted in recent years show that Latin Mass adherents align much more closely with church teaching. For example, only 1% of regular Latin Mass attendees support abortion, compared to a whopping 51% of those who attend the Norvisoto. On the subject of gay marriage, the percentages are 2% to an incredible 67%. Additionally, 98% of Latin Mass goers aged 18 to 39 attend Mass every Sunday, compared to only 25% in similar demographics who attend the Norvisoto. 90% of this 18 to 39 Latin Mass group were not brought up in the Tridentine Rite. They were drawn to it. It is the young, the very demographic that the Vatican II reformers hope to appeal to, that are flocking back to the old rite. Latin Mass communities are bursting at the seams with young families and single youth. Now, all of this is not to say that anyone who attends the old rite is a perfect person or a perfect Catholic, but Jesus did say, "By their fruits you shall know them." I am simply comparing the fruits of the Latin Mass today with those of the Norvisoto. The Agatha Christie indult signers were, as they said, not thinking of the state of souls under the Church's care. Whether or not these liturgical reforms would be spiritually beneficial was not their concern, and they certainly were not acquainted with the theological ins and outs of the Latin Mass. Yet they seemed to instinctively know that here was a pearl of great price, and to attempt to banish it to the dustbin of history would be a colossal mistake. Thank you for watching. Do you prefer the Latin Mass or the Norvisoto? Tell me which Mass you prefer and why in the comments. Also check out the description for all the sources used for this video. If there is any material that you would like to see us cover on Catholicism, culture, or Catholic prayer, please tell us in the comment section below.